Hey everyone, it's Keith here.
Keith Urban wears many hats.
Through these bloodshot eyes of mine, cold sober you.
Singer, songwriter, TV host,
And chances are you're sitting here.
husband to the one and only Nicole Kidman. And if you had to choose just one of his many talents, what would you pick? Yup, Nicole Kidman, me too.
Yeah, boy.
But while he may play the part of an average country superstar,
Home tonight.
Keith's life is actually very different from that of your average Nashville barfly. The performer behind some of the biggest country hits of the century lives a life that's very different from what you may imagine.
Forward and up 2 steps back.
From his mysterious origins in New Zealand and Australia, to his gratuitous and destructive drug use, to the surprising reality of his life among superstars, the tale of Keith Urban has been anything but predictable. So today we're looking at the man behind the music to see what we can uncover.
It's a good thing. Am I wishing?
Does he have any secrets from his life before Nicole? How deep did his addiction really take him?
Let my feelings show.
If you're a fan of Keith Urban, you're gonna wanna stick around. Before we begin, please hit that thumbs up icon to show support. And subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. But enough of me, pop on that record and let's go find out. What happened? Mysterious origins. If you're a country fan, you can probably confirm this.
That I don't need a whole lot of anything.
Most country stars grow up in small towns across the US, where they firsthand get a feel for country living and American values. But they quickly find their talent eclipses their humble beginnings, so they head to Nashville and make it big.
Oh, no, that I don't need a whole lot of anything.
You got Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks, even newer stars like Luke Combs. They all stuck to the script. But there is one fellow who did things a little differently.
That's right.
He didn't have a choice. Keith wasn't born in the States at all. We know his long journey across the world to the States has been one of the most complicated efforts of his life.
Thinking about you every time I came on. Every beat.
And it's still complicated. Urban was born in New Zealand and moved to Australia at the age of 2 with his family. Instead of the cornfields of Iowa, Keith got his country mindset from Queensland. His father owned an Australian convenience store, and he acted in a local Australian theater company. And when Keith began to make a name for himself as a country performer, it was on an Australian talent show called New Faces.
I can't be too late to say that I was so wrong.
He developed his career for a few years in Australia before moving to Nashville in 1992. One wonders what it was like adjusting to a new country at such a pivotal moment in his career. And he says it was a difficult transition for him. It's kind of far away, and he had to abandon his family and upbringing to commit to an American lifestyle. And while there were some semblance of country scenes back in Australia, none of them could hold a candle to the scene he found himself in the middle of in Nashville, Tennessee, where now he bumped elbows and collaborated with icons like Alan Jackson and Mr. Brooks. It makes you wonder what it was like adapting.
I could have turned a different corner.
Having to replace the kangaroos and koalas in his lyrics with horses and tractors.
Only you can love me this way.
Next up for Keith was hit after hit, and he became a superstar.
I then God whispered your name, and that's when.
But decades later, Keith's relationship with his distant family back in New Zealand would come back to haunt him. His cousins went to the press after they found out they were not invited to the wedding between Keith and Nicole Kidman. The reason was too many Kidmans invited. The singer's family members were miffed to hear that the Hollywood clan of the more famous American had more rights than the provincial New Zealanders, who just wanted to support their cousin on his big day. The family denied holding any hard feelings and wished the singer the best in his marriage. But I'm not sure the beef was all squashed.
You serious?
It just goes to show, as much as Keith has tried to abandon his global roots and embrace American life, his past will continue to follow him.
Been through.
As as he continues to build his legacy.
Then come back to me.
Into the Depths of Hell. The basic story of Keith's sad struggle with alcoholism is pretty well known at this point. Most details are public knowledge. After moving to Nashville, he got hooked on a ton of booze, and then he bounced around rehabs for years. But it wasn't until 2006, after his marriage to Nicole, that he truly got serious about vanquishing his demons. But we discovered some new details about Keith's descent into and return from the depths of addiction. And I think it gives new insight into Keith's headspace while he wrote some of his best and most tortured music. The first shocking detail is how much he was ingesting. When Keith moved to Nashville, he was overwhelmed by the glitz and glamour of America. He was so very eager to fit in, so he dove into the rock star party life, not really thinking about the long-term consequences of these actions. And by actions here, I do mean copious cocaine use. And Keith quickly discovered he wasn't the guy that could take a bump or two and be done. His drug use was quickly escalating. And as his career took off, his bank account grew too. And so he was able to stuff his nose with more and more drugs. A good friend of his describes an epic bender in which Keith went through $333,000 worth of coke all at once. And it wasn't just powder cocaine. Keith was knee-deep in weed, crack, you name it. If it was on any regulated substance list, you can bet it was taking a magic school bus style ride through Keith's nose to his central nervous system. The next thing we found was that he was up to more than just drug use during the extended bender that coincided with his peak commercial years. Keith Urban was doing whatever freaky stuff he could find, including modeling for Playgirl, Playboy's gender-swapped sister publication. Today, Keith looks back on this time with regret, but no comment from your trusty narrator. Alright, so it's 2006 and Keith has managed to crawl back up on the wagon.
Pulled the covers over my head, tried to catch some sleep.
He's married to Nicole Kidman now, but few know the dramatic truth behind his recovery. That following his marriage, Keith felt that he was carrying around a very heavy burden. He felt his wife hadn't truly experienced the evil side of him that hard drugs released. And the paranoia of this ironically drove him towards drugs. Along with that came the possibility that drugs and alcohol might have been the things making him successful. Keith wrote plenty of songs while piss drunk. Would he even have the talent while sober? Keith Urban didn't know, but he did know that he was committed enough to his marriage to find out. And in 2006, he checked himself into rehab, and he has been sober ever since. Hey, that's no urban legend. Keith Urban today. As we know, Keith Urban continues to be a mainstay on country radio, as well as my back porch. But what is the singer's life today like? Well, Keith and Nicole are still together, but it turns out their marriage is a little more complicated than you may expect too. Fans might think it's sweet to hear that Keith sees Nicole as something of a muse. He uses her as inspiration for all kinds of lyrics. But this too can become complicated when Keith's music, which has an audience of millions, reveals racier details of the couple's marriage. This became an issue surrounding his song Gemini. In which he sings, quote, "She's a maniac in the bed, but a brainiac in her head." And this was when Nicole stated that while she doesn't mind being Keith's muse, it does embarrass her when he writes such sexual content. She told as much to an interviewer who asked her about the lyrics. And when the guy continued to push, she told him to
Shut up! Shut up!
And that his questions were outrageous. So what do you think? Did Keith overshare with Gemini? Or was Nicole just kind of overreacting? Heck, she has participated in some racy scenes on screen too. Get in the comments and tell us your thoughts. Given how intertwined Hollywood and Nashville are nowadays, it's easy to be disappointed by our favorite country stars. How many times have we found out that our favorite singer has cheated on 9 out of 10 wives in the Hollywood mansion? It seems too many times. But sometimes it's nice to be reminded that not everybody is like that. And Keith Urban's life is the story of a guy who came from humble, distant beginnings, then was tempted by the trappings of fame and fortune, descending into addiction. But instead of embracing an evil Hollywood life, Keith found in Hollywood the thing you'd least expect: a woman who would save him. Maybe that's why Keith's music hit so hard. He's a guy who's lived many lives, felt a lot of pain, but has always gotten back up and worked even harder the next day. All right, enough of me. Now get in the comments and tell me your favorite Keith Urban songs, his best album. Have you ever seen him live? Do you like Keith with Nicole Kidman? And heck, throw in your favorite Nicole Kidman film too. I want to know what you guys like. And before you go, please hit the thumbs up icon if you don't mind. Subscribe to the channel and come back often so we can keep telling you
What happened?